Okay, so cooperative strategy, we're going to talk about it. Uh, Basically, cooperative strategy is a strategy in which firms work together to achieve a shared objective. So basically, they have a strategy together. They work together to achieve and obtain a shared objective or several different objectives. Basically, it creates value for customers, assists the cost of constructing customer value in other ways, and establishes a favorable position relative to competitors. So basically, the reason behind cooperative strategy is to create value for customers in an easier way, because two or more companies work together and they use their competitive advantages, and in that way they exceed the cost of constructing consumer values in other ways. In a sense, it would be easier because each company will contribute in their own way. So it's like group work, and basically it will establish a positive relationship compared to competitors, because there are several companies working together, like to cooperate. Some of them might be competitors, and then they become one company, or they work on one product. So what do we mean by a strategic alliance? A strategic alliance is a primary type of cooperative strategy in which firms combine some of their resources and capabilities to create a mutual competitive advantage. So alliances happen a lot. So it's one of the types of cooperative strategies that firms combine some of their resources and capabilities and create one mutual competitive advantage. It involves the exchange of sharing of resources and capabilities to co-develop or distribute goods and services. So they share and exchange their resources that they have, or the capital that they have, and whatever capability they have, and they will develop together or distribute goods and services that they provide together. And it requires a cooperative behavior from all partners. So basically, they're partners, they create an alliance together, and they work together. Strategic alliance behaviors. Examples of cooperative behavior known to contribute to alliance success are basically active leaders solving problems. They are trustworthy, they trust each other, they build the trust among each other, and they consistently pursue ways to combine partner resources and capabilities to create a better value. And competitive advantage developed through a cooperative strategy is collaborative or relational advantage. So it's relative, and it's related to the general or overall, resources or capabilities put together, and the final product or service is something out of all these different inputs. Okay. So we have firm A, firm B. Both of them have resources, capabilities, and core competencies They put them together, and basically they come up with final combined resources or capabilities and core competencies. There are mutual interests in designing, manufacturing, or distributing goods and services. As you can see here, three types of strategic alliances are joint ventures, equity strategic alliance, and non-equity strategic alliance. So joint venture is when two or more firms create a legally independent company by sharing some of their resources and capabilities. So for you to get some idea of what a strategic alliance means, one example is LG, the company LG. Basically, it was created out of two separate companies, Lodestar and Goldstar. They sort of combined together and they created a strategic alliance. And then, so that's a famous one, but then there are a lot of different strategic alliances, and especially joint ventures is when two or more companies create a legally independent company. LG is basically Lodestar and Goldstar, and then they combined and they became like the LG. But what it is there's no minimum, like, I mean, there's no limit. It shouldn't be exactly two for it to be a strategic alliance. So it's not, it doesn't have to be two companies together. Then we have joint ventures when two or more companies do that, and they create an independent company. So that's a joint venture. And then equity strategic alliance is when partners who own different percentages of equity in a separate company they have formed. So equity strategic alliance is when they have separate or different type of equity in separate companies they create. And non-equity strategic alliances is when two or more firms develop a contractual relationship, so to share some of their unique resources and capabilities. So basically, non-equity strategic alliance is two or more firms, they develop a certain type, not necessarily an expanded, but a contracted and a small version of relationship that they share some of their unique resources and capability. So there are some reasons behind a strategic alliance. One of the reasons is when the market is like a slow cycle. So they try to gain access to a restricted market, establish a franchise in a new market, then they maintain market stability and establishing standards. So these are the reasons behind strategic alliance. So basically, when the market is slow, companies put their resources and capabilities together to create and access the restricted market that they have, so that they can benefit from it more, and they then establish a franchise in that market, and then they maintain market stability in that sense, because without that cooperation, probably the market would be so harsh on them, they will lose their business. So when they're together, the resources and capabilities make them stronger to cope with problems with the market. Okay. Then even a fast cycle, a market with a fast cycle could be a reason behind a strategic alliance. They speed up the development of new goods and services. When the market demands high and you need to be fast, you better off if you create a strategic alliance. Speed up the new market entry. Sometimes the market, the demand for the level of quality and production is so high. So if you yourself are the only one who wants to enter the market, you will have a problem. So what you do, you create alliances with some other companies in order to be able to enter the market. That way you will be able to sustain and survive. Then the next one is to maintain market leadership. So basically, in order to be the leader or stay the leader, companies have to buy or acquire other companies. That happened when like HP acquired Compaq. So you see, like, in order for you to stay where you are, you will see that the companies will try to buy over other companies, and because they want to keep their level of share the market the same, because they're losing out, so they want to buy that other company that is doing well and probably have that certain share of the market. Then also it helps them to form an industry technology standard. So when you create alliances, you create a certain type of standard, because like several different companies, they work together and create alliances, and their standard will become the status quo. Then they share the risky R&D expenses. So research and development, as we discussed in the previous sessions, it's pretty expensive. So for a firm to be able to afford all those expensive R&D, they decide to share their expenses by creating alliances. So that way they will be able to basically share those expenses also. So not only companies will share their benefits, they will share their problems and expenses as well. And then they will overcome their uncertainty. So they will basically overcome the problems they have, and the uncertainty level that they are facing. So it helps them a lot in many ways. Okay, so next, let's go to the next slide. I see. Okay, I see that Mr. Ibrahimi doesn't have voice. Everybody else has voice, right? Yeah. So what you can do, one of the things you can do, as we have discussed before, you can just leave the class, come back, and then try to activate your voice conference. That might help. Otherwise, you could just listen to the class. Enjoy the class and participate. But for the voice, probably later on, you can listen to it on the Facebook or YouTube or at the facilities of the university. Okay, so moving on, when the market has a standard cycle, there's still reason to create alliances. you gain market power, reduce the industry overcapacity. Sometimes we have more than required a number of companies, and by basically creating alliances, they gain the power of the market, and also they reduce your capacity of the market. They gain access to complementary resources. Now, it happens a lot that as a company you have a certain limited number of resources. So in order for you to be able to have access to extra resources and capabilities, it would be smart of you to complement what you have by creating an alliance. So that way you will save money, you will get resources and capabilities that you wouldn't have unless you would do that alliance. That happened like for the bank Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo in the United States is one of the biggest banks in the United States. And one of the things they did, they bought over, they made the biggest acquisition in the history. They bought a very huge bank called Wachovia. So by doing that, basically they got a lot of resources because Wachovia had a lot of different type of customers, especially when it comes to business accounts and everything, and some assets. So by taking that a step and buying Wachovia, they were able to gain access to a lot of complementary resources that they wouldn't have. And for them to acquire that, they would probably have to spend a lot of money, much more than they spent to acquire Wachovia. And by doing that, they just gain all those resources. So that works pretty well when the transition is done properly. And then you establish economies of scale. We talked about this before. When you create numbers of your products and services, so instead of one product, you create 10 or 100. So the more you create, basically the less expensive it's going to be for you. So the expense of creating the products and services, when you create like a lot of the numbers of that product, you will save money because it's cheaper to create, let's say, 200 of your products than just one, because then when you divide the cost, because you have a certain fixed cost, when you divide it by 200 or by 1, so for sure there will be a difference in expenses made. Then you will overcome the trade barriers. Sometimes they they overcome the barriers. Basically, let's say if you are establishing an alliance with a company overseas, that way you will reach out to the market they have in some other region or some other country also. So a very simple example would be, you will see that companies like McDonald's or McDonald's, they're doing franchise. So franchise is a bit different from a strategic. It's part of it, but it's like they just give their license. But like a level before that would be like a company who is just trying to create an alliance with another company, so that they will reach out and access that market. So there are a lot of joint ventures for telephone companies. Let's say AT&T here, which is a telephone company, one of the biggest companies. They have alliances with other telephone companies around the world. So when people from here travel overseas, they'll be able to access their telephones. And one of the ways is by a strategic alliance that AT&T has created. So that certain type of, like DG is a European brand. DG has alliance with AT&T. So when you go there, they will, support your telephone, your cell phone. So Those are the ways that, they expand their reach to the market. And vice versa. When DG customers come over here, AT&T supports them. Then they will be able to meet competitive challenges from other competitors. So when they are faced with these problems, they'll be able to survive the challenges, because there are a lot of challenges. Sometimes the challenges are bigger than the company. They can just bring down the company into bankruptcy. But when you do the strategic alliance, the power you have and the ability that you have to respond to those challenges increases, and you can be faster and more efficient in surviving the challenging economy. Then pool resources for very large capital projects. So there are times that you want to invest in a big, huge project, and if you are just a small company and just planning on it, you won't go ahead because it's so risky for you. The risk of succeeding is so high, and you can't afford to risk that high, because if you lose, you'll lose your company. But when you become a bigger company by a strategic alliance, you will take that chance, because your ability to respond to those challenges increases, and you'll be able to survive that problem. Then you learn new business techniques. So basically, by alliance is one of the easiest ways to get trade, because there are a lot of techniques that you don't use, or you don't have the facilities required to implement those skills or techniques or technology. But by acquiring that company, you brought it in, and the staff or people who are using those technology, they'll be able to teach you and train you. So you are upgrading your technological facilities at the same time. So it's like a win-win situation. Okay, so business level cooperative strategies, they are, as we said, they're complementary strategic alliances, and there are two levels, vertical and horizontal. So competition response strategy, uncertainty reducing strategy, and competition reducing strategy. So these are all different types of basically cooperative strategies. So sometimes they're vertical or horizontal. We will discuss that more. And then the competition response strategy is when they respond to the competition. They use a strategy to respond to the competition that is happening around them. Or when the uncertainty in the market is so high, they reduce that uncertainty by cooperative or strategic alliance. And then they also reduce the competition. The level of the competition, they reduce it, because there are more companies joined together, and they create another third company or some other company other than their own company. So that will reduce the harshness or intensity of the competition that is happening around them. Okay, business level cooperative strategies, complementary alliance. You are combining partners, firms, assets in complementary ways to create a new value. So basically, you are combining partners and their assets will complement each other. Then it will include distribution, supplier, or outsourcing alliances where firms rely on upstream or downstream partners to build competitive advantage. So basically, complementary alliances is embracing, you are going and extending into your distribution channel or your suppliers, or even sometimes you outsource. You will buy over, you will get help from some other company that does sorry, does some part of the production or the service, and you will get help from them, and you will basically increase or into the upper level or lower level your partners, and that way you will create a competitive advantage. So there we go. Okay, so to understand what is vertical complementary strategic alliance, let's say you have your own value chain, right? You have your service like marketing and sales and outbound, inbound operation, and also the secondary processes, right? So you use your skills and capabilities in different stages and the value chain to create a both firm. So it's like an outsourcing. You are probably you have them all. It's not that you're giving out your service part or your marketing and sales. You're doing whatever you're doing exactly the way you were doing. Probably some changes because of the new alliance. But what you're buying over is an extra part or an extra value chain, something else that the other company was doing that you were not doing. And they have their own stages also. So it's not that you're giving out your secondary part to some other company and have them do it. You're doing all that you were doing, but you're getting some other services and products that are being created, but by their value chain, and you try to create a common interest in there, and the value that you obtain at the end of the day is the result of all these two or even more value chains that you are using. Okay. So horizontal. So the thing is, in this case, they are basically and probably on the same line. They are basically at the same line of products. But here, you combine your resources and create a value in the same stage of the value chain. So it is on long-term product development and distribution. Partners will become competitors. Okay. So in that case, when it's horizontal, when it's vertical, their services are kind of complementary. But in this case, when they are at the same level, the horizontal thing is probably they're doing very similar tasks. If they're just because the market is so fast, probably, and the demand of the market is so high, they need to combine. And what they do later on, they could become competitors of each other because they exactly do the same kind of thing, and they are producing products for the same market. So in this case, the chance of them becoming competitors again, if they were competitors, they became alliances, is very high because they are probably doing exactly the same thing. Okay, I'll see Mr. Rafa's hand. Do you have a question, Mr. Rafa? Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Priyan. I actually have a comment and in relation to what you just said. And I was also confused that is not cooperative and competitive positions conflicting each other. I say this because maybe in non-profit business, cooperative strategies are very relevant and useful. But in profit business, when firms start cooperative strategies, how it can go along with competitive advantages and competitive strategies or positions. Because I understand, in addition to cooperative strategy, firms, they have their own internal operational and business level strategies and their competitive strategies. So in cooperative work, a competitive position may not be very much secure. We may have the risk of imitation or copy, which we learned during the previous lessons. In short, your corporate partner learn from you, and then there is a possibility that they leave the strategic alliance to compete you in the same field.
Very good question. Thank you very much. Good points. But the fact that you need to consider in that question is that basically when you go for cooperative alliance for strategy that basically combines your two companies, you need to do that because of the challenges that you're facing. Let's say your company is struggling for market outreach. You don't have, let's say, certain level of customers that you need to have in order to sell your products or services. So you are basically facing a difficulty. So in that case, you will try to go and negotiate with some other company that is probably in the same boat, and you will try to come up with a new strategy that helps you both together at the same time. So let's say your company is doing well regarding the marketing, but not very good in production level. But then my company is doing pretty well in the production, but I have a problem reaching out to the customers and sell my products. So both of our companies, we are struggling because at the end of the day, you need the production to sell the customer what you are promoting. And also, if you're doing well in production, like my company, I need to be able to market that to the customers. So each of us are missing something in this equation. So what we would do, we combine what we have. I say, okay, I help with the production side. And you say, I help with the marketing side. So we create another company together or alliance together that we will, we use our strong points, and our weak points is the strong points of our alliance. So that way, of course, there are difficulties because when you are a company, you have your own corporate culture that we talked about, you have your own values, and probably the new company have a different one. In this case, mostly there is one company which has more power, and their corporate culture would be more powerful over the other companies. But end of the day, there would be a balance because we try to learn from each other. When we have, like in our company, we have some advantages, the other alliance will learn from them, and it's like a learning process. And that's sometimes is the only way to survive the market. So I understand that it could be confusing or it could be difficult, and it is difficult for most of the companies that do that. But in this type of the market, like in today's market, that the companies are really suffering because of the economy and a lot of challenges. Sometimes they have no other option. They only have this choice, and they have to take it. So, and they will. And basically, there are a lot of good examples, successful examples of alliances. So even though there are challenges, but it's possible and can be done. Okay, so I wonder if you got your answer, Mr. Rafa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Puyan. It was very good explanation. Now, I think you combine your strengths to fill your gaps. That should be only the logic behind cooperative partnership.
That is very true. That is exactly true, and that's what it is. Absolutely true. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And then I see a question from Mr. Barak, how they become competitors. So that goes back also to Mr. Lafa's question that when there are companies working together, especially when they're complementing each other, they learn a lot from each other, and they have a good chance to become competitors because they can do exactly what the other side was doing. So sometimes after a certain period of time, let's say when the economy crashes over and it's booming again, they don't need the other help partner anymore, and they just go on their own, and they make good money. So so that's how they become competitors, Mr. Barak. They learn from each other. They benefit from what they have, that situation that they have. But then after the need is over, they can just separate. Sometimes both of them will be successful. It's not necessarily that one that is losing a partner is losing and is unhappy. Sometimes they both together decide, okay, so now the alliance period is over, so we can move on and probably do on our own. So it's not always that the one party says, okay, I want to ditch you or problem you and just leave you. Sometimes they just, they decide together. So it's like the result of a discussion they have together. Okay, so we have the competition responsive strategy. Basically, complementary alliances and competition response alliances. They're kind of different. The first one occurs when firms join forces to respond to a strategic action of another competitor. And then because they can be difficult to reverse and expensive to operate, and strategic alliances are primarily formed to respond to strategic rather than tactical actions. Okay, so basically we are considering both of them together, like complementary and competition response. First, we want to say that when firms, they join forces, they want to respond to a strategic action of another competitor. It's like about competition sometimes. And then sometimes because it's difficult to reverse or expensive to operate, strategic alliances, they form because they want to respond to strategic actions, not necessarily tacticals. Because we discussed that in the first few sessions, the difference between tactics and a strategy. We said that overall strategy is what we call strategy. Like just a certain tactic that your company uses is not your strategic action. Strategic action is the overall result or outcome of all those different tactics that you use, So we talked how strategy, the concept, is taken out of war concepts, and it's a lot of the ideas of war. So in war, basically, it's not that we call a certain tactic the whole war strategy. The whole war strategy is the outcome of all these tactics. So the same concept applies to the competition alliances and complementary alliances. We are not just responding to a certain single tactic that a company that is our competitor is using or doing. We are basically looking for the outcome. So sometimes, as Mr. Wafa very nicely pointed out, we struggle. There's difficulty for us to combine because we have differences in our companies. So it's not easy to do that. But that's a tactic that we take so that our overall strategy will help us to beat down our competitors. So it's like what happened like in World War II, as an example, is like different countries, they work together as allies to bring down the Axis, which was Germany and Italy and some other countries. So you can see that their intentions behind was their major strategy of bringing down their opponent. So same concept applies to the businesses. Sometimes the huge marketing media that a company launches is like bringing down all the competitors. So they all get together and say, let's just oppose this certain company in that level, and they target that let's say advantage that that company has, and they try to compensate. So it's a lot of strategic decisions rather than just tactics that you can say. Yes, there are sometimes temporary, like for sure there are temporary ones and there are long-term ones. Like HP and Compaq, they did the everlasting or long-term alliance because HP was doing good in operation and a lot of things. Compaq was good in software and some parts, but Compaq was struggling, and they have a very similar type of production. They serve the similar level of customers. They are not from two different ends of the customer needs. So it was a very good and smooth transition for both companies. But that was a good alliance. You will see the fit that when you buy a computer, HP computer nowadays, either the software or the hardware is Compaq, then the other one is HP. So they are basically complementing each other. They used to be competitors, but now they are part of each other, and they're helping the same type of customers. So they merged together and they created a new company. It is still called HP though, but you will see some signs of Compaq there. You'll see like it says like the hardware is by HP, then the software is designed or created by Compaq, or vice versa. So it's not always short term. Sometimes it's long term. It's just a matter of the need or the reason behind you take that step and create that alliance. So you can't always say that it's just temporary. Sometimes it's long term. So it just depends on the type of need or reason behind going through that process. Okay. Sorry. So more on strategy and basically how we reduce the uncertainty. Uncertainty is a big concern nowadays, especially in this economy. When you are uncertain to take a certain step, it's very difficult to overcome that uncertainty and move forward, because if you make a mistake, your money will be gone and your investment and everything, and then it's very hard to survive in this market. So uncertainty could be a very, very important reason for you to stop moving forward. So we need to reduce that, and a lot of companies, in order to reduce that, they create alliances. You see that they use to hedge against risk in uncertainty. They are most noticed in fast cycle markets. The market is so fast, the demand is fast. Customers need a very fast cycle production, so if you can't cope with their level of demand, you will be out of business very soon. And also, they are formed to reduce uncertainty associated with developing new products and technology standards. So a lot of today's markets, products, and services are very, very high-tech, and technology required to create that is pretty high. The level and basically the sophistication and complexity of the technology that is used. So basically, that scares a lot of companies, and they for them to be able to take this step and move forward, they need to be able to be sure. So what they do, they create alliances together, and in that way, they basically combine what they have and they create some next level production. So good example is what Google does. Google is a huge company nowadays, and basically they bought, let's say, YouTube, and like YouTube was a separate company, and they had a different different type of customers. But Google, what they did, they found what uh, basically YouTube does, very, very much complementary of what they do. So in this case, it is very much of the previous discussion that we had that was complementary part, but it also has some elements of uncertainty in it, because Google didn't want to invest a lot in creating something exactly what YouTube does and bring it down. They thought maybe if they invested a lot of money in buying that company, but at the same time, they were not just competing against YouTube. They had YouTube, so it's reduced the level of uncertainty because YouTube was already successful in doing what they were doing. So even though, so don't make mistake of thinking that when you are reducing the level of strategies only when you are in trouble that you do that. Sometimes when you are like huge and powerful like Google is, you could still take a step of taking some other company, and it's just to reduce the level of uncertainty. So I thought maybe that example would be helpful in picturing how it works in the real business. Okay, is there any questions so far? How are we doing so far? Okay, so seems there is no question. So let's move forward to the next slide. Okay. Then the next type is when you're reducing the competition. So competition is when you are you create that alliance to avoid destructive or excessive competition. So like that Google example has elements of reducing the competition also, because YouTube was becoming too big and powerful, so that could in the future steps become a big competitor to Google. So by making that alliance, they stop that from happening. So when firms directly negotiate production output and pricing agreements in order to reduce the competition. So explicit collision is it's kind of illegal. So they go and talk and basically negotiate their products in a way that because because they're complementing each other and their competitors. Like if I decide to bring up the prices and I talk to you and say, hey, you also increase your prices because I'm increasing, and let's keep the market in a way that it is. So that's kind of illegal because we are sort of creating a scenario for the customers, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. But if indirectly I just respond when I see my competitor increase their prices, I would do the same. That's indirectly, and that's fine. It's not illegal. And then, it will create the actions from the other competitors. So basically, alliances are, there are certain levels of alliances. Sometimes they stay at the very primary level of companies just responding to each other's strategy, but mostly when they want to create alliances, they go to the next step of sitting together and bringing up a new version of a company that is different from their own, and also that helps them to do a good job regarding the competition and reduce the competition to the level that they can manage. Okay, is there any questions so far? Okay. Okay, so the next is assessment of cooperative strategies. So in order for us to complement business level strategies, they have greatest probability of creating a sustainable competitive advantage. So cooperative strategies, they have some benefits for sure. Otherwise, the companies wouldn't go for it. One of the benefits that the cooperative strategies provide is that they provide the greatest probability of creating a sustainable competitive advantage. I'm sure you'll remember we talked about competitive advantage, and we said that competitive advantage is not something short term that you have and then it's over. It's something long term. You got to be able to sustain and keep that. So if you are good in certain things just for a period of time, that's not your competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is something that you can hold on to and keep on doing what you're doing and be able to exceed and excel other competitors. So one of the ways to gain competitive advantage, as we just discussed, is to do cooperative strategies. And it is also one of the good ways to get a type of competitive advantage that is long-term and sustainable. So that's something you might want to think about, because a lot of companies are considering doing that, because what it does, it helps them to combine their resources and capabilities and then get some good competitive advantage that is long-term and it's sustainable. And horizontal complementary alliances are sometimes difficult to maintain because they are often between rival competitors. As we discussed, and we said that the horizontal there is a chance that they later become separate competitors again. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to do exactly the same or similar thing and work together. It might be very periodic or short term, but for long term, it's not that possible. Competitive advantage gained from competition and our certainly reducing strategies tend to be temporary. So, if the alliance is only done because of the uncertainty and competition, reducing the competition, the chances that it's just a short term would be very high. So the reason behind an alliance should be much more than that. Should be there should be a lot of research done on it to make sure that it's a good and smooth transition and it works pretty well. So that's something you got to consider. It's not that you just decide to create an alliance with a company, next day you do that, and next day you're successful. It doesn't work like that. It takes a lot of research, a lot of study on the company that you are going to work together. You got to make sure that there is a good, happy marriage there. Otherwise, there will be a lot of difficulties, and not necessarily all the companies that do that will be successful. So you got to understand what are the basic reasons or major causes that forces a company into an alliance. One of them is uncertainty. One of them is reducing the competition. But if those are the only reasons, that probably would not be the right choice, because end of the day, you as companies are going to combine and create a new company. So some other important factors that you got to consider or take into consideration are the resources or capabilities or core competencies of the company that you're taking. You got to see and try to compare or size up how they stand versus your type of products or services. How does the company that you're going to have alliance treat their customers? Let's say if you are a very customer-oriented company and then you're going to buy a company that doesn't care for their customers, that would not be a good choice, because that sort of challenges the whole idea of your company. The whole corporate culture that you have would be questioned, because they have a different approach to their customer. So probably you could still consider some cooperative strategies, but not with that certain company that you're studying about. So it pays a lot to just study first, understand the company, and then take it. So it's not that you just decide to do it today and next day you say, okay, let's cancel it and then do another one. These alliances happen when everybody's sure about that change, and mostly it's so difficult and expensive to reverse them. When you go into that process, all these hassles, it's so difficult to undo that. So you got to understand if it's the right time and everything is okay to go to the next level or not. So you just don't decide to do something and then you do it. It should be very, very well studied and searched. Okay, so any questions so far? Okay, no question. Let's go to the next slide then. Okay, so corporate level, diversifying strategic alliances, synergistic strategic alliances, and franchising. So now we are digging deeper into the levels of the cooperative strategies. So diversifying, basically, when you diversify your alliances into different venues or arenas. Synergistic strategic alliance is when you synergize, you combine, and you are sort of, it's like the common stuff that you have. But the first one is when you are going into new venues. And franchising is basically kind of licensing, and we'll discuss them further in the next slides. So diversifying, which is the first one, you expand into new products or market areas without completing a merger or an acquisition. Synergistic benefits of a merger or acquisition is less risk, greater flexibility in assessing benefits of future merger between the both partners. So in diversifying case, you are basically expanding into new market areas, but you haven't completed that merger and acquisition. It's not a complete, finalized merger and acquisition. It's more of an expansion. The benefit is like less risk, greater flexibility that you get, and you will size or measure the benefits of the future merger. So that's like the first step. Okay. Then the second one is a synergistic strategic alliance. They become joint economies of scope between two or more firms. Then the synergy across multiple functions or multiple businesses between partner firms. So in synergistic case, the economies of scope means that a broader scope of things, broader, broader plans for the company as a whole will happen. And also, yeah, the synergy across the multiple functions or multiple businesses between the partner firms happens. So in this case, basically what we're doing is trying to find the common senses or common concepts of our companies and see what we are doing that is related and focusing on those rather than just the new stuff that is happening in the other company and we just take them, bring them in. So in this case, we are just, sorry, we're just trying to broaden what we do, and we'll try to look for the common activities or procedures or actions or productions that our two companies have, and then complement each other. Okay. And then the last one is franchising. In this case, it's basically you spread the risk and uses of resources, capabilities, and competencies without a merger and acquisition. It's like a contract. So between the franchisee and the franchisor. So it's an alternative to growth through merger and acquisition. So in this case, the responsibility and the things that is required from the franchisor is much less than when it would be if they were going to do a merger and acquisition. The example of McDonald's in the beginning, they don't go and do everything from scratch in the new market that they do franchise. They just give their name. They give you a certain requirement of the level of the products and everything, and the rest they just give it to you when you're getting the agreement. If you can't comply, they close it down, and you probably have to pay like some level of fine or something. But the whole thing is just they don't want to do it from scratch themselves. They just put an agreement, put their whatever they require of you, and give it to you and expect you to do it. So that's how they do the franchise. So the responsibility for you as the person who is owning the thing and is just expanding it is much less than if you would do it yourself from scratch. So that's one of the major differences in a lot of companies. They rather to do franchise because it's much easier. And sometimes they start with franchising and then later on they go into other steps. Okay. So this is the other slide that we have is assessment of corporate level cooperative strategy. Basically, assessment of cooperative strategies is like a continuation of the assessment. So when you become a cooperative level strategy, when you use cooperative level strategy rather than a business level strategy, you have a broader scope. It is more complex and it's more costly. Those are nothing to be denied. And it can also lead to competitive advantage and value when successful alliance experiences are internalized and the firm uses such strategies to develop useful knowledge about how to succeed in the future. So you got to be careful, and you got to consider the fact that successful alliances happen when they are internalized. What do we mean by that? Who can tell me what do we mean by that? Anybody? Who wants to share what do we mean by successful alliance experiences are internalized? When is internalized? What do we mean by internalizing the experiences? Anybody? Any comments? Are you listening? Are you there? I need some volunteer to answer that question, please. Hello. Anybody wants to answer that question? Okay, Mr. Elias, CRC. Okay, go ahead, please. You hear me? Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, regarding your question, okay, what I understood, it might indicate that if two or more companies get together as an alliance strategically, for them to have a sustainable competitive advantage in value in the market, it's important that they, whatever values that they have, whatever secrets of success that they have, they need to keep it within their corporate, and they need to make it part of their institution. They need to make it institutionalized so that they work with more confidence with each other, and also they compete strongly with the rest of the firms. So they need to feel like they're both complementary to each other, and they do not feel to compete between themselves anymore. That's what I might say regarding the question. I'm not sure how much correct I am. Thank you.
Oh, can you hear me, guys? I've been talking and you haven't been hearing me. Can you hear me now? Oh, okay. So sorry about that. Okay, where did I start? I don't know when you lost me. Okay, I start again. So yes, very good example, an explanation by Mr. Hiyashi. Yes, you're right, absolutely correct. Uh, Successful alliance, you need to institutionalize. That's absolutely right. And what we mean by that is that when you are using or internalizing the change that you're bringing about, is it means that you're not just taking the change at the surface level. You have to implement that change. Let's say if the marketing strategy of the company because of the alliance is going to change, you got to implement that. Let's say if there's a lot of blogging or online marketing involved, you can't just expect the change happen by itself. You got to create the facilities required to make that change happen. You got to really change the staff. You got to train the staff in order to be able to upload or write down or put stuff on the website. If you just tell them that this is a change and you just got to do it, it's not going to happen. So what we mean by internalize means that we need to implement all those changes in the company, and we can't just expect the change happen by itself. So that's a good explanation by Mr. Yassi. And then to answer Mr. Akmal's comments regarding the fact that he said that they should be in the same country or market, I would disagree, because as we discussed, a lot of these mergers and acquisitions and cooperative strategies happen because you want to go to the new market or new country. As we are discussing, you want to expand. If you remember the first few sessions that we talked, we said that if you don't expand or grow, basically in a business you are losing out. Means that basically you're not successful. Even though you're doing well in what you're doing at the level that you've been doing it, you wouldn't be deemed as a successful company unless you expand or grow, because growth is one inseparable factor of success in any company or any organization today. So for the growth to happen, you need to go to new markets and industries. And that's what when you look around you and look at the successful companies, that's what you see. You see they expand. They become bigger and bigger, and that's what we call it success. So basically, you can't just stay in the market or the country that you're helping. You got to expand, and if you don't, you will expire, because the company needs to grow in order to sustain and survive the challenges. So I would disagree in that. Okay, so that is for internalization of those stuff. And then the firm uses such a strategy to develop useful knowledge about how to succeed in the future. So it also helps a lot about the knowledge and information, because as I said, when you do alliances and cooperative strategies, you gain access to a lot of information, what you didn't know and the other company know. So there's a huge learning curve. So the learning curve is quite high because you learn a lot. So that's a challenge and at the same time an advantage, because when you learn, it will complement your knowledge. You learn new stuff from the other company that you're going into an alliance with. So that's really helpful. Okay. So let me pause here if there's any questions so far. Anybody has a question so far? Okay, no question. Okay, let's do the task. Okay, the task is here, right, on this slide. for the corporate level strategies, we discussed there are these three levels. So what I want you to do is to explain at least one point for each on how they are different from each other. So we have diversifying strategies, synergistic, and franchising. So I want you to mention at least one point that makes them different from each other. So you explain how diversifying strategies is different from the others, how synergistic, and how franchising. So just give me an example or explain how they are different from each other. You could bring examples of your own company or any company that you know or you worked for before, so it doesn't matter. All I need to know how this is different, why diversifying strategic alliance is what it is, and just at least one point. You can give me more, but it's just at least one point. So that's the task. Please start working on it, and I'll be waiting for you guys to volunteer and read it out to your classmates, or you just type it down there, and we will discuss further. So any question on the task? Okay, it looks that there is no questions, so please go ahead and start, and we'll discuss in a few minutes. Hey, who wants to share his or her example or explanation? Anybody wants to start? Okay, who wants to start? Okay, Mr. Rafa, would you like to read it out to us? Mr. Rafa?
Thank you, Mr. Poyan. In short, what I got from these three different alliances and strategic partnership and diversifying a strategic alliance, as I wrote in the chat box. What I got, two or more companies that join to boost on their economy and to gain more from a joint business or a joint partnership. And in Synergistic, you do different jobs with different partners. Maybe you can have different alliances with different partners. I was a bit confused as regards to franchising strategy, and I think that is when some partners, they have common goals to domain the market in a particular business. I don't know if I'm correct in relation to franchising strategy.
In your examples, I mean, it's kind of the other way around. Diversifying is when they do different jobs, because basically you're diversifying. You're going into a new venture. You're going to do something different. So you try to diversify. You try to go into new stuff. But synergistic is when you do similar jobs. So basically, your synergistic explanation should be DSA, and your DSA should be synergistic. So when you diversify, you try to expand and go into new, different areas. But synergizing is when you are complementing what you're doing. So you're trying to find somebody who will complement you. And the franchise that you didn't talk about is when you are not going into an agreement yet. You just, I mean, it's an agreement, a contract, but you don't do a franchise yet. It's just, I mean, you don't do the alliance yet. Is when you just give the license and you expect them to do certain stuff, and you just give them the license, and they will do the rest themselves. So, so that's. I hope that that helps your confusion, Mr. Rafa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Puya. It's much clearer now.
Okay, beautiful. So we have Mr. Akmal's explanation here. Synergistic alliance, firms and companies just in their products for multiple businesses to depend on other big competitors. So okay. For your example, Mr. Akmal, they won't necessarily solely depend on the big competitor, but they work together. You know, in synergistic, they synergize. It's like you know, learn from each other, complement each other, and for the first one, the diversifying is when they just expand. They go into a new you know, venue and try to do something different. So maybe someone can give us another example. Okay, Mr. Safi, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Sure.
Actually, this corporate strategy in these terms are mainly in the firms and the companies. But let me give an example in the NGO sector, especially in the developmental sector in Afghanistan. Like in Ministry of Agriculture, we have National Horticulture and Livestock Program, where we have a set program of the water management. So we have like this synergistic strategy with the ARDP, which is a project of the MRRD, Ministry of Rural Development, and they are also doing the same work. So both projects are World Bank funded projects, but the areas are in some places overlapping. The terms of reference for all the projects is in some areas the same. So what we have been told that, okay, in some areas, for example, in some provinces and in some districts, when there is a chance, so there should be a kind of cooperation between them, the National Horticulture and Livestock Program, because they are also trying to do the water management for like the irrigation purposes only, and for ARDP. So we have like synergistic strategic alliances with them. This is the kind of strategy that I found. And then franchising might be in the developmental sector is something that in those areas that we don't have any access to go. Then what we are doing that we are subcontracting some NGOs that they are very familiar in those provinces, like HDO, like Hand in Hand, Access, these small organizations, and they are doing the job for the NHLP, or the National Horticulture and Livestock Program of the Ministry of Agriculture. So the goal and objective are the same, but the small organizations in some areas or some provinces are doing it in order to complete the goal. Thank you.
Great, absolutely beautiful. Very good explanation from you, Mr. Safi. Yes, well explained, the diversified and synergistic and franchising in your own company. So that's very true. So just the whole concept is when you do the alliance and you want to diversify, or when you want to synergize and franchise. So the very important point is to understand their differences and know which one is appropriate for you to go for. So as we have discussed a lot throughout the course, the main objective of the whole course that we're going through is for you to be able to help your organization and use all these skills in your career and your businesses. So we just don't want to give you theories that are not applicable so it's very important for you to be able to use these ideas. So it makes me very happy to hear all these from you, that you understand them pretty well, and you are already able to apply that to your own organization, and you are able to separate them and understand which is which and how you can use it in your own company. So that is great. Well done. It's a very good achievement for you guys. So if there is no question, I will end the session now, and we will go to the next class, the marketing class. Are there any questions so far? Okay, so since there is no other questions, I'll see you in the next class in a few minutes, in a marketing class. So don't forget your group assignments and individual assignments, because we are getting towards the end of the sessions, and it's not so far from now that you will be presenting your projects. So please keep that in mind, and good luck. Okay, see you in the marketing class. Bye.